The slap landed so suddenly that it silenced the entire diner, a sharp sound cutting through the bright afternoon like a crack in glass. Forks froze midair, coffee cups hovered just above tables, and a disabled girl in a wheelchair sat motionless near the window, her head turned slightly from the impact. Sunlight poured in through the wide panes, illuminating the redness on her cheek and the shock in her eyes. In that single moment, surrounded by people and noise, she had never felt more alone. If you believe kindness still matters and that people deserve second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Flow. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Her name was Nora Whitfield, an 18-year-old college hopeful with a fragile body and an unbreakable spirit. A neurological condition had confined her to a wheelchair since childhood, but it had never taken away her determination to live independently. Every weekday around noon, under the clear daytime sky, she rolled herself into the same roadside diner after her morning classes. It was a small victory she cherished. The diner smelled of grilled sandwiches and fresh coffee, and the familiar routine gave her a sense of belonging in a world that often rushed past her without notice. That afternoon, a group of young men crowded into the diner, their laughter loud and careless. They noticed Nora almost immediately. Her wheelchair, her quiet presence, the way she focused on her phone to avoid attention became an invitation for cruelty. What began as mocking stares turned into whispered jokes. When she tried to ignore them and sip her drink, one of them leaned in too close, invading her space. The slap came next, quick and humiliating, delivered with the kind of thoughtless malice that left no visible scar but carved deeply into her dignity. No one intervened. A server stood frozen behind the counter. A couple at a nearby booth looked away. The bullies laughed, proud of the silence they had created, and walked out into the bright afternoon as if nothing had happened. Nora stayed where she was. Her hands trembled as she steadied herself, her throat tight as she fought the urge to cry. She had endured pain before, years of therapy, surgeries, and whispered judgments, but this felt different. This felt like the world reminding her that vulnerability could be punished. Minutes passed, then nearly an hour. The diner slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the heaviness lingered. Outside, cars moved along the road, sunlight reflecting off windshields, life continuing as if cruelty were just another forgettable moment. Nora stared out the window, wondering why independence sometimes felt like isolation. She questioned whether coming here alone had been a mistake, whether bravery was worth the cost. Then the ground seemed to hum. The low, steady sound of engines rolled down the street, not aggressive but powerful, like a promise carried on air. One by one, motorcycles pulled up in front of the diner, their polished metal catching the daylight. 5 riders dismounted, tall silhouettes framed by the glass doors as they stepped inside. Leather vests, worn boots, calm eyes. They didn't rush. They didn't scan the room with hostility. They simply entered, bringing with them an undeniable sense of presence. The man at the front was Caleb Rourke, 46, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that suggested a lifetime of hard lessons and quiet strength. His gaze swept the diner once before settling on Nora. He noticed the untouched food, the tension in her posture, the faint mark on her cheek. He didn't need an explanation. Some truths announced themselves without words. The bikers took seats nearby, ordering food, their voices low and respectful. The atmosphere shifted almost immediately. The silence that once felt heavy now felt safe. People sat up straighter. The staff seemed to breathe again. Nora felt it too, a subtle change, like standing in the shade after too much sun. Caleb positioned himself where she could see him, not looming, just present. For the first time since the slap, she didn't feel exposed. As time passed, the bikers' quiet gestures spoke louder than any confrontation. One placed money on the counter to cover Nora's meal. Another casually adjusted a chair so her wheelchair had more space. No one stared at her. No one pitied her. They treated her like someone who mattered, and that simple respect loosened the knot in her chest. The pain in her cheek faded, replaced by something warmer and unfamiliar, reassurance. Outside, one of the riders made a discreet phone call, not to escalate violence but to ensure accountability. The diner staff finally found their courage, checking on Nora, apologizing for their silence. She nodded, understanding that fear sometimes froze good people in place. What mattered was what happened next. When Nora finally rolled toward the door, the afternoon light greeted her gently. Caleb walked alongside her, keeping pace without pushing, without leading. At the entrance he paused, giving her space to leave on her own terms. She lifted her chin, a small smile breaking through, and continued forward. Behind her, engines started again, not as a threat, but as a reminder that she hadn't been alone after all. Just before the ending, we have a special request for you. Please comment below where you're watching from and what kindness means to you personally. If this story touched your heart, stirred something inside you, or reminded you of the power of standing up simply by standing beside someone, please like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may be quietly hurting. That bright daytime afternoon did not erase Nora's challenges, but it changed how she carried them. She learned that cruelty may arrive suddenly, but so can compassion. Sometimes, hope doesn't shout. Sometimes it rides in quietly, sits nearby, and reminds you that your place in the world is not something anyone can take away.